Welcome to Round Hill Radio, the podcast from Round Hill Community Church. Through our conversations, we discover the holy and the ordinary, find moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about when we talk about faith. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Leslie.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
It's our 150th episode.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
I can.
I can.
Yes.
So can I.
I can. I'm a believer.
As the person who's edited them, yes, I can.
I bet you can.
I can also.
Far more so than me.
I
Absolutely.
can also believe it. That being said, what a journey we're on so far.
No kidding.
150 is kind of a funny number. Like it's not like 100 where you're like 100,
No.
made it to 100. But it's worth saying yay
It's
about.
the magic of numbers, you know?
I feel proud of us that we stuck with it.
No kidding. 150. Wow.
It's fun.
Our heart goes out to our listeners, right? As well.
You guys are brave. You guys are brave. But I think a lot of friends have found us more recently too. So
Agreed.
Welcome.
Yes,
the water's
indeed.
warm.
Mm-hmm.
So we're glad you're here.
Mm-hmm.
We're glad to be here. We're glad to be continuing doing what we're doing, putting a little candle in the episode and saying yay.
Yay.
It's a podcast birthday. So what are we chatting about today?
A rant.
Yes.
There's
It's
time for
not
a
just
rant.
me for once.
There you go.
It's not just me.
I wanted to join in and have some fun.
Join in.
All right. Are we ready?
Let me buckle up. I'm ready.
Here it goes.
Here it goes.
In the things that I've been reading and listening to about the life of communities of faith, how they're growing, not growing, what's exciting, what's not, the word innovation is just, it's everywhere.
Yes.
And it's not just in the life of the church. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
Can't miss it.
No.
And I actually love the word. Great word.
Sure. Yeah.
Innovation. And truth be told, probably the church could have been using this word a long time ago to its benefit.
I couldn't possibly imagine what you mean.
I'm hoping it's going to be better later than never. Anyway, so I love this, and I'm trying to do some thinking about innovation. There are courses being taught in it, a lot of exciting things happening. So I'm just going to do a little segue over to a story.
Okay.
Part of my Instagram, followings. And because I've been looking for some physical therapy stuff,
Sure.
Hubcap falls off here and there, looking for repair the body in whatever way possible. I found this awesome physical therapist on Instagram. He posts fairly regularly. Love his material. One of the things that I think he's gearing himself kind of towards my age, maybe a little bit north of me as well. And so one of his comments is that he will demonstrate an exercise on Instagram. They'll say, hey, try this and let's get better, not older. And I didn't catch it right away.
Yeah.
But when I gave it some thought, I realized, something, why can't being better and being older be good friends?
Yes.
Right? Why do we have to separate them like that? And guess what? We're all getting older. So
every day,
let's make friends with that reality as well.
Yes.
So having thought about this in the context of innovation, reminded me that quite often I will hear phrases like, in the church, that is, the old ways aren't working anymore. Okay. What old ways? Which old ways are they?
Keep going.
Right.
More information, please.
Why are they not working and what are they? And then the other statement that's often used in concert with it is, it's time to try new things. Okay. What are some of those new things we're supposed to be trying?
Right.
And one of my big concerns about this is that in a leadership environment, or in an environment where we want to grow and we have good leadership, clarity is important. Yeah. And if you simply say to a group, the old ways aren't working anymore, well, what does that mean to them?
Right.
It's not clear, it's ambiguous. And try new ways of again, what specifically are we talking about? Right. So I just think that where we're trying to get better as we grow older, and as we're trying to respect what has gone before us and be open to what's in front of us, how can we give some specificity to this? Right. So one of my little missions in life now is that when I think about so-called old ways, I'm thinking about the things that churches have been doing over the centuries, like serving people, singing hymns, playing music. These, I think, are the old ways that we're talking about, right? Practices and disciplines that have been utilized for hundreds of years by people to grow their faith.
Right.
So what is it about those so-called older ways that can be refreshed or revitalized if they need to be, just as we need to do that with our physical bodies as we grow older. Right? And if we're saying try new things, how can we be as specific about that as possible? So maybe the new thing that we're trying is actually just a slightly different version of what we might have called an older thing. Right. And I was very struck by an example in the life of the congregation in terms of a service endeavor where the congregation was preparing for, a group of people were going to go to New York City, reaching out to those who are homeless and providing some basic essentials, but also serving food and having time for human interaction. But one person in the congregation wanted to help collect some of the items that were going to be brought to New York City, essential hygiene items and so on. And so the collection for that was not done in the church. It was done in the church, but in addition to that, it was done with a major neighborhood gathering over 2-3 hours one Saturday afternoon in someone's home where people were, invited to bring all of these things, spend time together. 30-some people were milling around, talking and chatting as their children collected these items and sorted them. I thought, now that is an older way of doing something and giving it a newer form.
Yeah. Made it so fun.
Right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is making sense.
Yeah.
So that's my rant.
I love everything about that. Because I think there is a tendency to use a terrible saying, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Right. Of like, this thing doesn't work. Let's chuck it and start from scratch.
Yep.
To use another terrible phrase, to reinvent the wheel, right? Like to say this isn't working. What's an entirely new thing that we're doing? It puts me in mind of, we had a wonderful Saturday program with a gentleman whose name is completely escaping me all about millennials. And I was feeling scrappy walking in there that day. I will tell you, as your then resident millennial, I was feeling like, oh, okay, great.
What are they saying about my people?
Yeah. Well, what? Yeah, defend my people. I felt a little bit like a so-called expert coming to talk about like those youngins, right. Which they're now, we're now apparently elder millennials now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're apparently old now too. So it's, it's fine.
Happening to all of us.
It happens. It turns out every day we get older. But I was like, I'm not a real millennial because like I play the organ and I collect fountain pens and I have a vintage typewriter. And he looks right at me. He goes, "Oh yeah, you're a nostalgic millennial."
There you are.
Apparently there's like 4 different categories of millennials and I fit right solidly in one.
There's probably 4 of you in that niche category.
Well, it's an elite club. But we are marked by our affection for things that some people would discard.
Right.
And have both beauty and function is what I like to think of it. And the joy. And you and I actually bonded the first time you and I met over our love of fountain pens.
Right.
True story.
Yes, we did.
And so I think, and I think I heard recently the church had a program. They were talking about furniture and about how the quote I heard was like, none of our kids want our brown furniture. Which, as an owner of brown furniture, I can appreciate. It is a thing. But this idea that what is old, some people think what is old does not have value, and what is new has inherent greater value.
Right.
And I love this idea too of the repackaging or I almost think it's re-energizing, because I think once we do anything over and over and over again, it maybe starts to lose just some energy.
Yeah.
And so if
any aspect of life,
anything,
right.
And I'll admit, we get to our Christmas celebrations every year. And I mean, all year, I feel like my job, I want to bring new energy to things, bring new voices, new hymns, new songs, new. And then I get to Christmas And I'm like, and then I have to realize, oh no, we are going to sing Joy to the World.
Right.
We are going to sing, we are going to sing these same, I could probably play with one hand blindfolded at this point.
Sure.
That doesn't make them any less meaningful.
No.
And so the challenge for me as the director of music is to find in that my own new energy so that I'm presenting it in a way that feels fresh enough, but I'm not changing it too much.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a beautiful description. And something in what you've said puts me in mind of a friend of mine who's been a journalist for many years. And he was responsible for covering religion for a fairly major urban newspaper. And he loved doing it.
Yeah.
And he had his desk, he said, was notoriously, recognized as the most full of disarray, all these notes and books and things people sent him and ritual objects and you name it.
I bet.
But he said one day he found that he had lost interest in it. So that does happen in life, right? It happens. And it wasn't as if he had said, that the older ways aren't working. He still recognized the value in them, but he recognized that his experience with them needed to change. He had to find a different way to enjoy them, experience them, write about them. So that became part of a new adventure in his life. Right. And we all benefit from that. Right. But sometimes we find it hard to let go of that one thing in order to, as you said, to find the place where there's the greater energy.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that wherever we are, whatever stage of life we're at right now, we're asking that question. I guess just stopping to ask questions, first of all, like, why doesn't this have energy? Try not to use the language of, it feels old, because older things, older people, older ways have, can be treasured and cherished, have to be.
Absolutely.
And again, as you've said, the new isn't always necessarily the default next best thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It might be, but we won't know until we investigate it, until we experiment with it.
Right.
Right. So I think that's part of what we're at this stage right now where we have an opportunity to think very deeply about some of our most cherished traditions and ask if it feels like they need new energy, how can we do that?
Yeah. And I think so much human thought, everything, air quote, old was new at one point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And was given, depending on what it was, various levels of thoughtful consideration, was meaningful to however, tons of people, depending on what, I'm speaking in vague terms here, but it makes me feel like sometimes with those maybe traditions that we can find in them something that's been deeply thought about and that connects to our humanity in a very like deep feeling way. Sometimes I feel like with new shiny things, I'll make the comment of like, it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have that depth,
right?
That I feel like that can be found in things that have been worn by the winds of time, worn by the ocean,
right.
And they've been given their test, right? Like, so a hymn, the poetry has been worked on and worked on and worked on and worked on for decades. And so it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation with a friend about how there was a movement maybe like 10, 15 years ago in like contemporary Christian music where they would take an old hymn.
Oh, yes.
And then like mash it up with a new song. And I was like, yeah, all right. Which I like as if I'm going to listen to it, like I enjoy that.
Yep.
But to me, it definitely feels like you're taking something that has so much depth and value and being like, I'm going to use that to give my song depth and value. And we see that in music all the time. We see sampling done of like, all these, you see tracks, little bits given to a new piece to give it that thing. And also catching something in the human ear that I've heard this before.
Sure.
So I connect to it more quickly than something that's entirely new. You see this in music all the time. Everyone's referencing each other. So nice way of saying stealing or referencing.
There you go.
Sampling. But it's an interesting way of that borrowing the conversation between what's existed before, and specifically not using old, and what's being newly created.
Right.
And when we use that width and depth and breadth of knowledge and experience and creativity, then I think we're all the more better when we look at something new.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to join your rant because it feels like there's nothing new anymore.
I knew that I would.
I'm here. I'm on board. It feels like nothing is new. It feels like anything new, you're like, yeah, we've done this before, guys.
So the question I always ask when I read something about something that a church has tried, and I hear this thing, well, we've decided to do a completely new thing by ... I always ask myself, is it possible that I've seen that done before?
Yeah.
And I would say 99% of the time, yes. And look, even a lot of the work that we did online, right, was kind of hearkening back to a time when the church began to put itself on television.
Totally.
Right? And so we did it we did do it using we certainly used new technology, and we were able to add embellishments to it that didn't exist before, but still the idea of communicating, using whatever technology is available at the time, it's been around for a while. Yeah,
just the bar for entry is just so much lower because technology is so much more widely available at reasonable prices.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually a very exciting time to explore the interface between what we call our traditions, and I think, as you said, that which has not yet come into being, and help there to be a really great conversation between something that we refer to as older and that which is better. Keep these two things together.
Yeah.
Let's not divide them, and think how life continues to have great value all across the age span, and how we can help each other to draw that forth.
Let's get older and better and wiser.
Yes.
And more energized.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. And thank you all for listening. Round Hill Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Round Hill Community Church. For more information, please visit roundhillradio.org.